Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Talk to Me Tuesday for Tuesday, June 13th, 2023. This is Sarah. It's been a very long time since I have filmed or posted anything. It's also been a very long time since I've sewn anything, which is part of the reason why I haven't been doing this. The other part is I moved twice and I got into a new relationship, which is going really well, and just kind of trying to put my life back together after getting really sick. Still not 100% better, still don't really know what happened, but that's life. On to sewing projects. So I started sewing about 15 years ago, and I started sewing because I was really into corsets. Now, a lot of people are not fond of corsets. There are lots of historical myths about them being super damaging or super controlling of women's bodies. Most of this is just bullshit. I'm not really going to go into that because other people have, with a lot more historical background and sources cited and all of that. The point is, I like them. They're nice, I find them comfortable, I find them supportive, I find them a good alternative to bras and a good foundation for wearing really fitted dresses over. Now the problem is, while you can buy corsets, you can buy them either off the rack, so like ready-to-made, ready-to-wear clothing, or you can get custom made, which is significantly more expensive, but obviously it's custom, it will fit you perfectly. I don't have the budget for custom, I never have. I also don't have the body for ready to wear. I'm very tall, I'm about 6'2". I'm pretty large busted with a relatively big difference between my waist, my hip, and my bust. So this meant that the only real economical way for me to do this was to do it myself, which is why I started sewing. And then I got intimidated for 15 years and didn't do it. I've made so many mock-ups of so many different corset patterns over the years, and I've never actually finished one because I would get probably 3/4 of the way through the mock-up stage, and then there would be like something I would need to change, and I would get derailed, and then be like, oh, I can't do this. I don't know why I'm like this, but I am. But all that is to say, I finally finished one. So this is very much my white whale project. It's been haunting me for a very long time, and I'm very happy to finally have something wearable to show for it, even though it is far from perfect, and I already have plans to remake it using a different pattern and different construction techniques. I actually made this twice. So this is a very particular type of corset pattern. As you can see, so each of these bones in the casing is on a seam line. So there are a lot of seam lines. This is pretty unusual for corsetry. It's following a design concept from a former custom couture corset maker called the Bird's Wing, where it uses many very small, narrow, strip-like pattern pieces to create sort of a very hinged effect around the body, which creates a really nice fit. It also means that the curves around the bust and the hip are more gradual, whereas if you're using a standard corset pattern with about 6 to 8 pieces per side, for example, this corset has 16 pieces per side, big difference. So a standard corset pattern usually has 6 to 8 pieces per side. That means that the curves over the bust and the hip are going to be a lot sharper and more severe, which isn't really a problem when you're sewing the pieces together, but if you're doing what I did to encase the bones, this is showing the bust. So I did a welted seam. So I had a very wide seam allowance, and then I folded it over twice and stitched it down. And that's what's holding that synthetic baleen, which is just a kind of plastic, whalebone bone in there. The problem with this is that over really curvy areas like the bust, which is thankfully the only place I really had this problem, you can't really get it perfectly smooth. This isn't showing great on camera, but I don't like how it looks in person. It's wearable, it's doable, but it's not, actually I think this side is worse. I'll show you this side. Yeah, see all those little wrinkles? Some of those are stitched in, and you can't get rid of those. It's just impossible, because to get rid of those you would have to make the curve less, and to do that it wouldn't fit around my bust, and I kind of need it to fit around my bust because I don't want to wear a bra. So this is actually the second one, well, I'm considering it my 7th prototype or mock-up, but it's the only one that I actually finished. Right before this one, I made one out of what's considered the proper corsetry material, which is coutil, which is a very finely, tightly woven, in this case, a herringbone finish. It's a really sturdy, really stiff fabric, and I had the same problem with the bust on this one, and I got the sizing a little bit wrong on this one. So I just didn't finish the edges, didn't bone it, ordered a few new things for the new one, and then made the finished one out of just a plain quilting cotton. Because what I've been using for the mock-ups was like a soft cotton twill, and I liked the feel of that a lot better. I may go back to the coutil with the new construction techniques I'm considering, because one of the reasons I went with this pattern was I like the many bones on it. They're very flexible and lightweight, so it doesn't really add a whole ton of, well, it does add structure, but it doesn't add like a ton of weight or a ton of constriction. But I think what I'm going to do for the next one, and I'm going to take a break from this because I'm very burned out on this project and I want to make dresses to fit over this already. So tired of working on this project. Also, it was kind of cursed, which I'll get into in a minute. I think the next one I'm going to make, I'm going to go back to a 6 or 8 panel standard corset pattern, fit it, and then instead of cutting it into this multi-panel pattern, I'm going to make a 2-layer corset instead of a single layer like this is. I'm going to make a 2-layer corset and basically sandwich the bones in between those 2 layers so I don't have to worry about external bone casings cut separately, which I don't want to deal with, or I don't have to worry about the way that I did the bone casings on this one, which was that lapped welted seam. I mean, I think that will give a much smoother finish, and I can still just cram as many bones in there as I want. I may actually experiment with doing a fully boned waist. I would put the bones at the waist flush together, so bone, bone, waistline, all along the waistline. And then at the top and bottom, they would kind of flare outwards. So this project was kind of cursed towards the end. I originally was really sure that I was gonna like the coutil, so I only ordered enough grommets to do 1 corset. That was a mistake. I really like these grommets. They're a size 00. They're very small. And those went in beautifully. And then when I had to reorder materials to make the second version, I ordered from a different manufacturer. I had originally ordered from someone in the UK. This time I ordered from someone in the US so that I would get stuff faster. And I ordered the same size grommets, which were that 00, but they're much larger on the exterior. Same size, much bigger looking. And the grommet setter tool that I was using for the tiny grommets just wasn't doing a great job of setting these new ones. So I don't know if they're just like, they didn't work with that tool, or they were just not good quality. I did finally wind up digging out my grommet press, which had been lost since my last move, which I'm very glad to have found because setting grommets is a huge pain and really hard on the hands, and I was actually getting my boyfriend to do it for me because it was so difficult for me to get them to set properly. The problem with that is the 00 die that I have for that grommet setting press is aftermarket and it doesn't fit quite right. And I guess I did something wrong, but I got like a grommet wedged on there, on the corset, on the die, and we could not get it off. We did eventually get it off, but we like ripped a much bigger hole from where the grommet was supposed to go. So to get around that, I put a die that came with the grommet press back on the press, which was a size 0 die, which is a slightly larger hole diameter. But it turns out that the grommets that I had that came in that size with that press were the same size around the exterior as the really cheap 00 ones. So it's not too noticeable. Like you can see where the holes get bigger, but from a distance, it's not too bad. That was very frustrating. That was kind of a nightmare to do. But from a distance, it's not too bad. And also, I'm not planning to wear this out. Well, I am planning to wear it out. This is underwear. This is a bra replacement for me. This is a foundation garment. So nobody apart from my life partner and now the internet is going to see it. So it doesn't really matter. This also shows the hand-dyed silk ribbon. I was aiming for like an antique mauve color. I think I just used way too much dye, but I'm really not mad about it because it turned out this really beautiful blackberry color. So I have that ribbon for this corset, and then next up on my list is a floofy lacy petticoat that will also be accented with some of that ribbon, and then hopefully I can just make some dresses to go over that. I do already have some petticoats that I had purchased that I wore for many years and was satisfied with, but they're not really long enough for the length of skirt that I like, so I'm just gonna go ahead and make my own and make it cotton so it's not so sweaty in the summers. I think I've rambled for quite long enough, so I will put this guy on and show you what it looks like, and I will see you, I guess, when the petticoat is done.